Recording. Okay, Bruce Green is joining us, which is good. We get some more folks coming in, which is good. So today we're talking about a RESTful API that I've been working on for GoldMine. And a lot of people probably are not going to know what a RESTful API is or anything about that. So that's the objective today is, one, kind of explain what a RESTful API is, what you can do with this RESTful API that I've developed, explain how it works and all the different components involved, and kind of demonstrate some things that you can do with it. And I was initially thinking about starting off with explaining how everything works, but I think I'm actually going to show you what I've written first so you kind of see it and get a little excited. And then we can kind of talk about some of the technical components of what's involved, because it is it's basically about web enabling your GoldMine. What we're doing is basically allowing web applications, any web application, to talk to your GoldMine or allow your GoldMine to talk to another web application, which I get requests a lot over the years. Can GoldMine integrate with so-and-so? Does GoldMine integrate with this? Can GoldMine do that? Does GoldMine do this? And for over many of those questions over the years, it's been no, it doesn't do it, and no, it cannot do it. And with a RESTful API, the answer is now, yes, it can do it, and here's how it can be done. So there may not be a solution that's in place, but with a RESTful API, that solution can be done. And sometimes it's a very simple thing, and sometimes it's more advanced development. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate some of the things that I've done. So I have on this computer, my computer, just so you know where I am set up, I have been working from home. Pretty much everybody from First Direct works from home now for the last 3 years. I've worked from home for the last 3 years. We closed our office. So I am in my home office on my computer. You're looking at my computer. I've got multiple screens, so you really can't see my other monitor, but I have on my computer running a web server. There's a WAMP web server. It's free. It consists of an Apache web server, a PHP installation. You can get MySQL with it, but it's basically an open source web server for hosting a website. So this jdiamond.com is a domain name that I've owned for a long time, and I set up this RESTful API using jdiamond.com. Ideally, the domain name could be anything, myrestfulapi.com, company ABC's RESTful API. The domain name is just a name for a website, right? It is not a business website. It is actually the name of this web service that's hosted on this computer. So I've registered a domain name. That domain name is pointing to my house IP address. I've set up my firewall and my router to access my web server. I've written this little app, this little web app, to basically access information and integrate information with my GoldMine. So I'm logging in to my API, and what's happening now, right now, as soon as I log in, is it's going to validate this login against information stored in my GoldMine database. So I'm going to log in, and I'm now logged in. I've successfully logged into my API. Now I've written a couple of different things, so now I have an actual menu, and the first thing I'm going to show you is a web-based thing that I've been working on, and I initially started writing this so I could test the API. So what I'm showing you right now is a front-end web app that's in a web browser. This could ideally be hosted on any website. This could be hosted on, company portal, abc.com, whatever. It doesn't need to be hosted here on my computer, but this is a front-end app that is accessing my GoldMine database utilizing my API. The API is actually hosted on this computer, but this interface that I'm using right now could be hosted anywhere on any website outside of my office. It could be hosted on my public website. It could be hosted in on another domain, wherever. And what we're looking at right now is all the company information in my GoldMine. I've basically just made an API call. I've made a request to get a list of all the contacts in my GoldMine database. There's a couple thousand of them. I'm paging this information. You can see as I go through, I can go to the last page. There's 887 pages here. I can go to the first page. I've basically now written an interface to display my GoldMine data in a web browser. I can look at a particular record by clicking on a view button, and here I'm seeing a screen. It's a view. It's nothing really fancy, but here you can see I have a history record in this record. I can see additional contacts. I can see emails. What's nice with this number is clickable. If I were to click this number, you see over here, the first thing it's saying is, hey, pick the app on your computer that you want to use to dial the phone. So a lot of people today have web-based phone systems, or they have Skype, or they have this other click-to-dial app that dials their phone. They don't really have a handset, right? They don't have a physical phone with keypads and a headset that you pick up. It's all software based. A lot of people have that. So what's nice with a web browser and this information is I would pick my app, Skype, whatever, and now that app would start dialing the phone and dial this number. I've written my interface so that as soon as I click on that phone number, the first thing that pops up here is a kind of a complete a call, right? I'm dialing the phone. I'm placing a call, but now I want to complete a form. In this screen might be a complete a call form to complete a history entry in this record, and obviously I can close that or whatever. So you can do that kind of click to dial thing. I can view, edit any of this information in this record. If I want to edit this record, here's a form that's passing in all these fields. I can have custom fields here, and I can change this information, and it's going to automatically change the information, update the database in GoldMine. So we're talking about creating a new web interface for your GoldMine. Whether you want that to be simple or complex, with a RESTful API, those sort of things are now possible. You may have heard of the GoldMine web app that comes with your GoldMine. It's a very slimmed down web browser based interface. It's very nice. This is similar to what that would do, right? You could now start creating your own interface. The nice thing with something like this is there's no license. I could write any interface I want to access my GoldMine database, and I don't need to buy a license for this. I just need to have a web interface and the API, and I can now start creating a interface to allow users to do what I want with my information. If I just need people to see information, I can do that. But now I can start creating screens that I can't create or have access to in GoldMine. For instance, this is a list of all my additional contacts. Nowhere in GoldMine can I easily see every additional contact in my database, not without writing some sort of SQL query. But here I can see every additional contact. I can have a search and search for a particular one. I could view that additional contact. I could edit that record. I've actually written a web-based calendar. So this is a calendar. Here I would pick my user account. You can see here's the 20th in my calendar in GoldMine. I have this appointment scheduled. That is this appointment we're on right now, this API. I've got a call that I just booked earlier on Monday. I've got a GoldMine install on Monday. If I click on that, a window pops up. I can display more information, right? So I haven't completed a lot of this. This is not a complete solution, but again, showing you some of the things we can do, accessing the GoldMine information via web browser. I think you got that, so I'm going to close that one. So that was something I really started writing that to test my API. And I'll explain what an API does allow you to do and how it all works. But again, it's access to your GoldMine information in a browser. Creating, reading, getting, updating, deleting, modifying the information in that database in a browser. The next thing I wrote was I wrote some MailChimp integration. I wrote a MailChimp add-on. I started writing this interface and I said, great, I can manipulate the GoldMine data, but now I want to integrate my GoldMine data with another app. So the app I chose was MailChimp. And the first call I'm making here is I'm grabbing a list of some of my campaigns in MailChimp. And I use MailChimp to send my GoldMine Success newsletter. So I'm going to grab this list, this campaign. So they all say GoldMine Success because it's basically sending the same, every email I sent is GoldMine Success. So this is a list of all the opens. This is a list of everybody in my MailChimp database application that clicked on it. There's 87 entries there. This is all paged out. You can see there's 9 different pages here. 87 people opened my GoldMine Success newsletter. This is a list of anybody that unsubscribed. There was no unsubscribes. Clicking on bounces will give me a list of all the bounces. There was 3 soft bounces. And then this is everybody that clicked on a link and what link they clicked on and how many times they clicked on that link. I obviously want to be able to update and put this MailChimp information, from my MailChimp application in my GoldMine. If I click this button, it's basically going to create a detail in GoldMine. It's going to find each one of these records. Everybody with this matching email address, it'll find that record in GoldMine with that email and go ahead and create a detail if one does not already exist for this campaign, and create a detail for the fact that somebody clicked on this link and how many times they clicked it. All I got to do is click that button. Once I've clicked it, boom, done, it's finished. If I go find that record in my GoldMine, and I'll go do it now, it should be there. God, I hope it is, because I haven't tested this in a while. Let me go find that record over here on my GoldMine email, and then I'll show you my GoldMine. Come on. Got all these pop-ups coming up. Campaigns. There it is. I'm going to bring my GoldMine over. Bring it up. So here you can see GoldMine success. Here's all those entries coming in. Conrad, click the link. There's all that information in there for that success. So all that stuff is now in my GoldMine. Very easy. If I want to process bounces, again, what do I want to have happen with these bounces? Well, if it's a soft bounces are really not hard bounces. I could filter out hard bounces if there are hard bounces here. What would I do with a hard bounce if I had one? Well, I'd want to find that email in GoldMine, remove that email because it's not a good email. I might want to add a history entry to the record in GoldMine that that email was deleted and indicate that why that email was deleted, what campaign was it deleted from. So I can now start writing the automation and the integration that I want for something like MailChimp. Now, the other thing we can do is obviously I want to upload a list from my GoldMine to MailChimp. So I'll use a test list here. I've got a test list. This is going to make an API call to my GoldMine and give me a list of all my GoldMine users. So now I'm accessing my API to say, hey, give me a list of all the GoldMine users. I'll choose myself. This is a list of all my groups in GoldMine. I can say I want to choose, okay, email campaign tracker. Now, for everybody in that group in GoldMine, I want to upload all their primary additional emails or other emails, and I can choose a particular merge code here. I can add multiple email merge codes. I can show all those contacts. There's a list of all those contacts in GoldMine for that group. You can see here's all those merge codes. I could limit it to just the Z99s, the ECTs. These are primaries, these are additionals. And as we get down to the bottom, there's the others. Why? Because I said primary, additional, other. If I don't want the others, go ahead and uncheck that, show contacts. Now I've only got 41. There are no others. Now what do I want to do with all these contacts? Well, I can pick and choose which ones I want to upload. I could pick them all, and I can go ahead and subscribe these contacts to my MailChimp test list through a web browser, hosted right on my app. Again, not necessarily any license. I'm not writing any software. There's no installation of any program. I don't need to worry about, hey, I got a new computer. I need to reinstall something to be able to do this. This is installed on one computer in your office. Everybody has access to it. It can be made public to people outside your office. However you want to implement it, as an intranet or an intranet website. I've made mine public. But again, I could lock this down and only make it available so I can get to it from inside my home, all right, as a local web app. One of the other things I started doing was zip code database management in GoldMine. So as you know, in GoldMine, bring up my GoldMine again, GoldMine has a zip code database. It's not very populated, or it wasn't before, and mine is now, but GoldMine has a zip code database which lists zip codes in the actual corresponding city and state that matches that zip code. So in GoldMine, if you go to create a new record in GoldMine, sorry, I want to go new record. If I create a new record, and let's just say test here, and I know the zip, 12550, that's my zip code. It's going to automatically populate the city and state. Well, again, GoldMine comes with a very limited lookup list, maybe 10,000 zip codes. There are some 50, 60 something thousand zip codes in the US. So what I did is I went out and I subscribed to a zip code database service. Basically, they mail me every month the latest US zip code. The US zip codes change just about every month. There's a new zip code being created. I know here in New York, there was a couple of new towns that broke off from other towns and counties, and they all got new zip codes. So you can manage your current zip codes inside GoldMine. This basically is going to generate a list of all 50-something thousand zip codes. Takes a little bit because I got a lot going on in here, so I'm going to just close down my GoldMine at this point because I don't want to have all that gap happening. But there's a list of all 43,000 zip codes in my GoldMine. Well, what can I do with this? Well, I could say, hey, I got to get rid of all these. I want to wipe them all out, so I could select that and delete all the selected. Right? I want to manage those. Some of these are not valid. I could clean them up. I could search for a particular zip code, whatever I want to do. I'm going to refresh my app here. It's I got so much running on my computer. I'm bogging up my app. Let me go back here. Yeah, the whole computer's freezing up here. Let me close my Dreamweaver over here. Let me close this thing here. There we go. I'm going to go back and just log in again. So I could upload, right? So I've got a zip code database. I could take that zip code database CSV file and upload it to my GoldMine. And it'll go ahead and convert that zip code CSV file and populate and repopulate my entire database with the proper zip codes. Once you have proper zip codes or addresses in GoldMine, you can geocode your addresses, right? So what are geocodes? Geocodes are latitude and longitude coordinates based on an actual address. These are all the addresses in my GoldMine. There's 75 of them, only 75, that do not have a latitude and longitude coordinate. So these are the ones that maybe got recently added. These were probably recently added contact records, or quite possibly there is an incorrect address here. Maybe these are not valid addresses or there's something going on in the record. But basically you can highlight some of these and geocode those addresses. If I inspect my browser and go to console, you can see over here that I'm making some API calls using this location IQ. That's the API that maps these addresses to a latitude and longitude coordinate, and basically it updates the records in GoldMine. It finds there's an account number. There's an account number that matches up to the GoldMine record in GoldMine. So there's some API calls being made. Once you've gotten the latitude and longitude coordinate, you can now start mapping your customers. So I wrote a little mapping app. Again, it's just a simple thing to test the API. It's nothing full, but I can say, hey, I want to get a list of all my customers within a 10-mile radius of this zip code. And boom. I've now got a zip code mapping app of all my customers. Let's say I'm going down to Dallas for the week. I'm visiting a customer. I'm going on site. Well, while I'm there, maybe I want to visit some other customers. So I type in the zip code of where I'm going, I type in my radius, and then I got a list of all those customers. I can say, okay, great, let's take all these guys. Let's schedule an activity in GoldMine. Let's add these people to a group in GoldMine. Let's send them an email. Let's get some directions for these. Let's map a route, right? So now I can start doing mapping things with my customers because I've got that latitude and longitude coordinate. I can now start writing web interfaces, web apps that utilizes my GoldMine information. And again, I also used prospects. So I've got a list of all my prospects, or I could say, give me prospects and customers. Again, I've got a different icon. Blue, I think, is customer. And again, you can change this to say, I want 100 miles, anything within 100 miles of where I'm located. There's all my customers that's going to pop up, probably a couple thousand records within that radius. Again, not complete solutions at all, but something that can be done, right? That's not necessarily anything that really, it just is beginning. I was writing it because I was testing my API and being able to do those things. I've written a hard bounce email remover system. So in GoldMine, when you send out an email in GoldMine and it goes to somebody and that email bounces, normally in GoldMine, you're going to get a hard bounce non-deliverable email. I'll go ahead and log back into my GoldMine. and I'll just show you. I've got a couple. I've cleaned up most of them, but I'll show you here. I've got this folder that I've created, undeliverable. There's 4 emails in there. I've read 2 of them. There's 4 total. So I've got this undeliverable folder, and then I've got an undeliverable done. Basically, I wrote an app that says, hey, I want to look at this user. Again, I'm making an API call. Get me a list of all my GoldMine users. I want to select that user. It's going to scan that mailbox folder in GoldMine. It's basically going out, and there are those 4 emails. This is basically looking at the body of those emails in that folder and pulling out those email addresses that have bounced. So you'll notice here, here's Kate at Compass Tools, Inc. If I look at this one is Grace Berry. That's Steve C. But what you're noticing here is they're all Compass Tools, Inc. I think there was something with their mail server that day. I don't think those are actually hard bounces. I just think their mail server was down, because all 4 of those are Compass Tools, Inc. I haven't looked into it, but I could basically process these. What does it mean when I say process? Well, what do you want it to do? What do you want it to do when I click that button? Do you want it to remove these emails? What mine does is it does a bunch of things. When I click this, it does a bunch of things. One, it finds these matching records. It links that email to the record, because remember, these emails in this system, in GoldMine right now, these emails are not linked to any record, because they're coming from this mailer daemon, whatever random address, right? They don't come back from the email you sent to. It just comes from some random address that you don't have in GoldMine. So the first thing it does is it finds this record in GoldMine. If it finds that record, it links this email to that record. It then finds that email in GoldMine and removes that email from GoldMine, right? That person's email address. It puts that in the history, that the fact that email had hard bounced. So it does a lot of automated linking, moving, and filing, and then it moves that email out of the undeliverable into the undeliverable done. It does that so I know that those emails have been processed. Those emails that have bounced, those undeliverable emails have bounced and have been moved to that folder, and they're done. I don't need to worry about those anymore. I can decide at that point, what do I want to do with those emails? So that's some basic hard bounce management. I've written that, I've tested it, and it works pretty good. Now, the other thing people have is sometimes I had a customer that submitted their list. They exported their entire email list from GoldMine. They submitted it to a list scrubbing service, and that list scrubbing service provided them back a list of all the emails that were no longer valid, right? They were hard bounced emails. So they scrubbed their GoldMine. The problem is now they've got a list of 50, 100, 300, 500, whatever, how many emails that are not valid that they need to get out of GoldMine. So I basically wrote a basic script where you take a list of all those emails that are bad, you upload it in a CSV file, and my app goes through every line in that CSV Excel file. It finds that matching email in the GoldMine. If it finds that matching email, it removes that email from the record in GoldMine, puts it in the history, creates a history of the fact that email was deleted, and puts in the notes of the history of the deleted email. If you wanted to schedule a call, follow-up, alert somebody, notify somebody that an email was deleted, and schedule a call or a pending action, we could do that. Again, we have full control over what you want these sort of things to do. It's just a matter of writing it, making those calls. So those are a couple of things that I've written. I wanted to show to you that, again, these are examples of a web interface that you could design, web apps that you could create to utilize your GoldMine data. Now what I want to talk about is integrating your GoldMine with other apps, right? Actually doing some automated integration. So for instance, one of the things that people do a lot or have asked a lot about is being able to send SMS text messages out of GoldMine. And out of the box now, it's not really possible. GoldMine has an SMS feature. It's really an email. It sends an email to the person's cell phone subscriber. So if you have someone's cell phone number and you know if their provider is Verizon, you can send an email to their phone number at verizontext.com. That's what GoldMine does. It's basically an email to the cell phone. If you want true SMS, you need to use a service, something like Twilio. So Twilio.com is an SMS email API provider. They have an API for sending SMS text messages, for sending emails, and doing all sorts of cool things. So I signed up for their programmable SMS. You pay a couple of dollars a month for a cell phone number, a number that your text messages are going to come from. So when the person receives your SMS, it'll come from this paid phone number that you get. You can certainly port your number over. So if you go out and get a cell phone number, you could port that number over to them and make it look like it's coming from that number you already own. But what I've done is I've written integration with GoldMine. And basically the way it works is I'll go into my record. I've basically been testing it with my record. And it's pretty cool. Basically requires no software installed on your computer. You're basically using GoldMine out of the box. The first thing you would need to do is have the phone number, the cell phone number in a particular field. So in this case, I used phone 1. Some people have their phone in phone 3, their phone in phone 2. Doesn't matter where you're putting it, but the cell phone number would need to consistently be in that field for every record that you wanted to use it for. And basically, you just complete an action. You complete something in GoldMine. I'll complete a next action. And you can give this any reference you want, SMS message, sent, whatever. You could have, obviously your default lookup over here. The key is the fact that you are using a code here called SMS. So that's the key, SMS. And then in this body of this history item, you're going to say, what the SMS message you want to send. Hello, this is Jay at test. And the fact that you're basically putting the code as SMS, you type in your message, you hit OK. Once that history item is created, I've written a SQL trigger in my SQL database that is listening and waiting for that particular action in the history table to be created. As soon as a history entry is created with a code of an SMS, it goes out to my Twilio account and sends an SMS message. That is happening through a service that I subscribe to called Zapier. So if I go look at my Zaps, and I actually look at my task history, well, it should have gone. Those are all my junk email. I'm telling it when it doesn't. Let me see here. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I know what I did. I didn't turn it on. I have to turn it on. GoldMine to Twilio SMS, Twilio to GoldMine SMS. So this is a paid account that I have, but I have so many Zaps. I'm only allowed to have 20, and I've exceeded that. So I have to turn some on and turn some off to use it. So basically what GoldMine is doing is it's creating that trigger. That trigger in GoldMine, that SQL trigger on the history table, is posting the information from that history, the notes, the cell phone number from the record, to my Zapier account. Zapier is then doing the integration with a webhook to Twilio. And then basically on my cell phone, I'd get that SMS test message. I've tested it, it works. You're not going to see it because you can't see my phone. But that's how that integration works. So there's a SQL trigger in GoldMine. It posts some data from GoldMine to a Zapier webhook. And I'll go into this Zap so you can see it. So there's a catch hook, right? A catch hook, and I'll talk about webhooks are here in a minute. There's a hook that's provided by Zapier. This is a unique URL that's I'm going to send information to this URL. This URL is specifically for sending SMS messages to Twilio. So I've got this Zap set up, and then what I'm doing next is I've logged into my Twilio account. I'm customizing all the information in here. There's the phone number from GoldMine. There's the contact name. There's the message. And then basically, boom, it happens. Now, the cool thing in GoldMine is I can complete a whole bunch of messages. So if I want to send a whole bunch of people, right, I could schedule something and complete something, and then boom, it'll send 50 SMS text messages, 100 SMS text messages. And the cool thing with Twilio is it's like 0.00075 cents per text message. So like 100 text messages is like 1 cent. So it's real cheap. It costs like $5 a month, I think, for the cell phone number. You'd have to look at their pricing. You can pay as you go. You get volume discounts, programmable SMS, 0.0075 to send and receive a message. You can see those details. So it's real cheap to do SMS text messaging. And again, what I just described there really doesn't utilize an API. That's basically using GoldMine and SQL Server's capability of writing a SQL trigger to send an SMS. If you want to be able to receive back a response back from that person and automate some workflow in GoldMine, you would need my API. You would need the API. And that would work through Zapier as well. So if I go back to Zapier, you'll notice that I have a Zap in there that I didn't turn on, Twilio to GoldMine. So this is basically saying, hey, when I get a new SMS in Twilio, right, and I could say, okay, if that, when there's a new SMS message, go ahead and post that data to my webhook. And in this case, this is going to be my API webhook. I can create a webhook in my API. And in this case, there's a Twilio create, right? I'm going to create something in GoldMine. And this create script is going to grab the phone number that's from, their message that's in there. And now, for instance, let's say I'm doing appointment reminders. I've got an appointment coming up. I want to send an SMS text message. Respond yes if you can. If you're still holding it, reply no if you can't make it. If they reply no, I want to delete that appointment in GoldMine, and I want to automate it. So I want to schedule a follow-up call for my secretary to contact that person and reschedule, and I want to do some other things, right? So I can start automating workflow from an SMS text message using Zapier. I think we pay $20 a month for Zapier for the 20 Zaps that we have that I've been working with. It's like $20 a month. I mean, it's very, very affordable. And they have access to thousands of apps. So I'll talk a little bit about Zapier in a bit. So, and if you look at all the Zaps that I have, I mean, I've done all sorts of cool things. I've done Calendly integration. So with Calendly, same idea, right? Somebody books an appointment with you in your Calendly app. So I went out and signed up for Calendly. I'll demonstrate that to you. Somebody books an appointment with you. You want it to automatically book an appointment in GoldMine. So in order to use this, you have to have a paid account with Calendly. They will not let you do it without a paid account. I've set up a 60-minute meeting request. So basically I can come in here and I'll do it on, you can see these are booked out because it's so late in the day, it won't let me do it. I've got those booked out. I'll say Monday at 9 a.m., confirm that. So I'll just create a fake record here. And what I mean by that is I'm going to enter an email address that I know that is not in my GoldMine. So the matching is based on email, right? It's going to find a match in GoldMine. You can create custom fields. You know, I want your phone number. I want your address. I want your company name. So these are some custom fields. And then let me make sure my Zap is on. Calendly, yeah, Calendly invite created GoldMine calendar. Yes, so that's what should create something in GoldMine here. So I'm going to schedule that event. Cool. The first thing you're probably going to notice here is this. I just got a Slack notification. So I've integrated my Calendly with my Slack as well. So Slack is an inter-office chat app. And this basically immediately notifies me. I got an alert on my phone. I've got it on my phone as well. It chimes, it rings, it buzzes. And basically I know that I've gotten a meeting. Well, what's also cool, if I go into GoldMine and I do a search for JTest, there's my test record, there's the company, there's the email, and if I go over here in pending, there's a Calendly 60-minute meeting that was booked in the record. Now, let's say that customer deletes it, or I delete it and I can't make it. So if I go to my Calendly account, scheduled events, you know what? I got to cancel this. I gotta reschedule it. Let's say I want to reschedule it. You know what? I can't make that time. So let's do Thursday. Let's try Thursday at 10 a.m. Confirm that. Can't make time, right? Cool. And this is me as the customer, right? This is not me, Jay at GoldMine. This is me, the customer, saying, hey, I can't make that. I'm gonna rebook that. And you know what? I didn't turn that on. Hold on. That's not gonna work because I don't have my Zap on. But basically, what the Zap does is it goes out, finds that appointment in GoldMine, it deletes the original appointment, creates a new appointment, and whatever. Why is that doing that? Yeah, okay, it is. You know what it is? It's switching it. So that basically does that. I didn't have my Zap on, so it's not going to do it. But it would delete this request, and then it would schedule a new one with a new date, and it would alert me in Zapier, my Slack account. So there's Calendly integration. Again, there are thousands of apps that Zapier integrates with. My headset is about to die. So here, let me try this. Hold on a second. Hold on. You guys still there?
Yep.
Guys still there?
I am.
Awesome. I had to dial back in. My headset died on me. All right. So again, Calendly integration. Again, there are thousands of apps. If we go over here to explore with Zapier, again, this Zapier is a web service provider. They have written thousands of integrations between thousands of different web apps. And, you know, I don't know what half of these apps do. There are all different types of apps. There are accounting apps, app builder apps, CRM systems, calendar, call tracking, contact management, dashboards, databases, email marketing, gaming, fundraising. I mean, there's just so many different apps that are available for you to use in your business, own, whatever. There may not be a possibility to integrate one of them with GoldMine. So to give you an example, I can, you know, let's look at something like Constant Contact. So some people have asked, can I integrate Constant Contact with GoldMine? GoldMine has some integration out of the box, but it's not really great. It doesn't really do much, and I can't make it do anything it doesn't do because I don't have control over that. With Zapier, they give you these things called triggers in action. A trigger is when something happens in this app. So you can see here, they only give me 3 options: when a new contact is added, or when a new email is opened, or a new list is added. There's really not much for integration here. I really don't have much that I have access to as far as integrating Constant Contact with GoldMine through Zapier. Now, Constant Contact very well might have their own, and I'm very sure they do have their own RESTful API. So then you'd have to be doing something like I was doing earlier. We're creating something in a web app to utilize their API, which is what I did with MailChimp. I used MailChimp's API to write my own integration. This kind of thing is automated, right? This is what's nice with Zapier is it's automated. I don't have to do anything. It just happens. When something happens, it updates GoldMine. I don't have any software. I don't have to click a button, anything. It just does it. Now, if I go to my Zaps, you'll notice I went to my task history. There's my thing. It stopped, right? It stopped. Why? Because I didn't have it running. So that's the invitee created GM calendar thing. When something like this happens with Zapier, if something doesn't work, they record the fact that it didn't. I can come in here and I can replay this. So for instance, if your web service is down, right, or your GoldMine server is down and you can't integrate with it, if that stuff's down, what's nice with Zapier is they're going to start queuing up your failed processes. So it's kind of like a fail-safe, which is what I love about Zapier. They're going to make things and they're going to automate things for you, but they're also going to record when things don't, and you can just come back in here and replay them. Now, with a certain pricing point, you can actually enable auto replay. You know, auto replay it every 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you want. It'll just keep trying that until it is successful. Or, you know, eventually it'll fail and email you. They also email you when these fails. So when you're, you know, your server's down, you don't know about it, and your Zaps are going, well, they're going to email you or email somebody and say, hey, your Zap failed. There may be an error, and it's obviously a heads up, hey, something's not working. So that's what I love about Zapier. And again, if you look at their plans, we're paying, I think, $20 a month. You get 20 Zaps with 1,000 data pushes per month. So that's 1,000, think of like 1,000 appointments scheduled, 1,000 text messages. You can pay more, obviously more data you're sending and integrating, you got to upgrade your plan. So if you go to wherever their billing is, wherever their pricing is, again, it's very affordable. It's not extremely expensive, but the more integration you're doing, the more you're going to pay. But you know, automation is great. I want to take a little bit of time and talk a little bit what's involved with making this all happen. You've seen it. You've seen what we're doing. It's obviously working, so we can make it work for you. What is REST? What is an API and so forth? I've written this little web page out on my blog. It's not public, so you'd have to type in this URL. I haven't posted this. It's a page. It's goldminesuccess.com/goldmine-restful-API. I'll send that to everybody so they can read this. But it talks a little bit about what a RESTful API is, what an API is. It gets a little technical to give you a sense of what's involved. The key is that you're hosting a web service. You're just hosting your own website web service for integrating with GoldMine. And we're going to start sending data to it, and it's going to start updating records. It gets a little technical, talks about webhooks, how webhooks work, which is what I've used with Zapier. I demonstrated some of these integrations here, but now I want to talk about what's required and involved if you really want to start doing these things, and what is the cost. So the first thing you're obviously going to need is some domain name. You're going to need a registered domain name, my RESTful API, my GoldMine integration, whatever, unique API URL. I don't care what it is. It's for you. It's not for anybody else. It's not a website you're going to market things to. It's for integrating with your GoldMine. You can get a website domain for like $4 a year. The next thing you're going to need is you're going to need an SSL certificate, which is what's going to encrypt your data and make it secure so that if there's a mid-end in the middle somewhere at a coffee shop or somewhere snooping on your internet connection, they're not going to be able to read and see your data and, grab email addresses, whatever. There are free SSL certificates. I use SSL for free, or you could certainly purchase one from a CSA, a certificate authority. A certificate authority might cost you like $50, $60 for 2 or 3 years. The SSL for free, it's free, but you got to renew it like every 3 months. There is a way to automate that, and I've set up mine. My RESTful API uses SSL. I renew it once every 3 months. You're going to need a web server. As I talked about earlier, there's a web server that's involved. You could use IIS. You could use WAMP, for instance, if you don't want to put it on your server, but you want to put it on a workstation, a Windows 10 machine. I set one up yesterday, literally on a guy's computer. I installed WAMP. I installed the SSL. We got the domain name purchased, and next we're scheduling time to write the integrations that he wants. He wants the Calendly integration, so I'm going to set up his Calendly integration to do what he wants his Calendly integration to do, right? So it's not a one-off solution like you buy it and it does what it does. We customize it to do what you want it to do in your GoldMine, which is really the power to this thing. So we're going to install WAMP on your computer. It could be on your server. It could be on a computer. It ideally has to be on the network where your GoldMine SQL database is. Mm-hmm. Once that's all set up, we're going to set up some port forwarding and open up some ports on that computer's firewall. So just like I went to jdiamond.com, so you can get to it, right? The only way you're going to get to your website hosted on your computer is you open up your network to be able to access this from outside your office. Once that's all done, we then set up the API and configure it to do what you want. If you want to do Calendly integration, we're setting you up with Zapier. We're setting up the integration to make the calls. We're going to talk a little bit about what you want your Calendly integration to do. Who's the user in GoldMine that's going to schedule those calls? Do you want it to schedule a notification, an alarm you? All the things that you want your integration to do, we can do that. I even designed this little graphic here that kind of talks about everything that's going on, all the different components. There's the GoldMine database, which you already have. There's my RESTful API that I've written. We talked about having a web server. This is some of the things I showed you today, your own apps, right? MailChimp integration, zip code, mapping. Those are apps that you can have in your office. And then I showed you some integration between Calendly and all those other things that we're doing with Zapier, coming through your firewall, sending and receiving data, and talking to your GoldMine database. And that's how that all works. Now the pricing is going to be really based on what you want it to do. Something like a full-fledged web app that accesses your GoldMine, your entire GoldMine system, is pretty complex, right? There's a lot of work involved there. If you just want Calendly integration, you're talking about accessing the calendar and history or contact. It's very low level. So you're like $400 or $500 or something like that. It really depends on what you want your integration to do. So I don't have a set hard in stone price. It just depends on what you want to be able to do and what apps you want to integrate with. Like I showed you before, somebody might say, hey, I wanted to integrate with this app. Well, we got to look at what the possibilities are, what's available through Zapier. Are we utilizing their custom API? But there is this RESTful API that we can do, and we can certainly write these integrations. Now, the other cool thing with the RESTful API is once you have it, you can basically get any developer. You can start hiring any other developer. You don't need to hire me. You can hire any developer that knows how to utilize a RESTful API to write some integrations or write web apps. I actually sold the entire RESTful API to a client that is a developer. They are actually web developers, and they have in-house web developers. So they're just using my API, and they're writing their own integrations. They just bought the API full out, and I installed it for them, got it configured. But they're now basically, they got everything I showed you, everything I just showed you in that demonstration, the front end, the MailChimp, they got access to all that for one price, one upfront price. So what am I saying is, if you want something, you have an interest in something, contact me. We can talk about your specific needs and getting you a price that works for you, because there's so many options. So that's really my presentation. Again, this is something I've been working on for about 3 or 4 years now, like around the clock, nights, weekends, free time. It's been a long journey, and I realized I was developing and writing things, and I needed to start to present this to people so that they could tell me what they want. Because I started realizing there's no one solution. Everybody's needs are going to be unique and different, and I had to get this webinar out there so people can be aware of what they can do. So if you have questions, I would definitely recommend you contacting us. You can contact us through GoldMine Success, 1ST Direct. You've got our phone numbers. You've got my email. Just let us know if you're interested, and we can talk about it. So with that, I am thanking you all for attending. I am not going to take any questions, just because if you have them, you can email them to me. And I'm going to let you all go. This webinar is recorded. I might very well make it available publicly, so you can review it again if you have questions. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and stay safe and stay healthy.
You too, Jay.
All righty, guys.
Take care.